Classes in session. How you doing? Welcome to Unlearn 16 classes in session. I don't know how long I'm going to go on this one, guys. I feel the need to talk about it. I feel the need to get into it. I don't know what direction we're going to go or how long I'm going to last at this, but I think it's important to talk about. So, I know I've spoken about my grandma on here before. And I know I've spoken about the healthcare system and what she's gone through and her losing her memory. She's 97 years old. I know I've talking. That's right. I can't even make sentences right now. I know I've spoken about all that. But the funny part is I don't know if I've spoken about the super important personal stuff because I think it's really easy for me for the most part to show aspects of my life, sure, and to talk with passion and anger and all of those things when it comes to institutions and what I think people deserve and how they deserve it, and this might be part of that as well. But the interesting thing is we don't spend a lot of time talking about what happens before somebody's life is over. And I know that sounds horribly morbid, and maybe, I don't know, maybe it is. But I feel like we should talk about it more so that when people are going through it, they don't feel so alone. It's not so foreign. It's not so overwhelmingly insane. So, just to give a bit of a backstory, I've been close with my grandma forever. And I'll give you pieces of her so you guys can kind of get to know her a little bit. Like when I was really young, my grandma looked after me. So my parents got divorced when I was young. My mom went to work. She was a nurse, and my grandma would look after me. Now, my grandma took pride in the fact that people would think I was hers. So my mom didn't necessarily love that. And my mom makes a joke that the time she decided to put me into a daycare, like a very sort of educationally driven daycare, was the day, I said to my grandma something silly like, "What's a virgin?" Because obviously I'd overheard somebody saying it as a little tiny kid. And my grandma says, "Well, it's somebody who's not married yet." And my mom's like, "Well, that's not what we're doing here. We're going to send her off to school." I think my mom, it was more like, that's hard between a mom and a daughter and raising their kid who gets sort of in that control seat. And my grandma's a very, very, very strong woman. So she would have really controlled that. So I go off to school, but my grandma, my mom, my grandma's my mom's mom, and my grandpa, and my mom's brother Ray. I mean, he was like a dad to me. My grandma was like a second mom to me. It was a very, very close family. So when my mom got divorced, it was like me, my grandma, my mom, and other parts of my family. But really, the three of us were like intricately. Oh man, English is going to be hard this podcast. Connected. Um, to the point where every year we'd get in the car and we'd drive down to Florida. They told me that Memphis was on the way. I did not know it wasn't until I was about 15 years old. So we drive down to Memphis. By the way, that's 8 hours out of the way. And then we come back and drive into Florida. We go to Disney World or whatever we were going to do every year. And every year, guys, some of my best stories and some of my best memories are from those times when you're like trapped in a car for hours upon hours. To give you a synopsis of all like 12, 13 years that we did this, we're in Ontario. So by the time we got to, let's say, oh, I don't know, Syracuse, I'd spent all my money. Hands down. I found shoes, I found a hoodie, I found this, I found that. I was no different than I am today. And my mom then would start having to spend her money on me and my grandma as a result. Now, my grandma would just get frustrated that my mom would like let me sort of lead, whatever I wanted. But my grandma, it's funny, she always played this stoic sort of harder parent. And to her kids, I think she was. But I've never felt, even in her gruffness, because she was gruff, even in her necessarily her rules or her structure, I have never felt anything but love and pride and a connection to her. So we drive down there, and probably just after Syracuse, we could be hitting like, I don't know, a Carolina or something like that. Not too much further than that. My mom, we used to have these triptychs, and my mom would like read, would give them to my grandma so my grandma could direct us. Again, pre Google, pre phone, heaven help us. And at some point, my mom would be looking over my grandma's shoulder trying to read it because she didn't think my grandma was doing it right. My grandma would catch her. She said, "Do you want her to do this?" My mom said, "But you're not doing it right." My grandma would throw the triptychs across the car and then we'd get lost. Every vacation, guys. That happened every vacation. My grandma also every vacation would get mad at some point, get out of the car and walk 32 miles to wherever she saw fit. We'd have to drive up and try to catch her. And we'd laugh like as much as we could fight and fight about the stupidest crap. One time we, we were at a gas station. My mom said, "I'm going in to pay. Does anybody want anything?" "No, you guys are going to stay here." "Okay." I left the keys in the car. Cool. She went in. I said to my grandma, "Grandma, I'm going to go in because I do want something." I said, "Are you going to wait here?" "Yep." Cool. Left the keys in the car. I go in. About 3 seconds later, my grandma's in the store, and my mom goes, "Mom, what are you doing out here?" She goes, "Don't worry. I locked the door." Keys were in the car. Keys were in the car. So we had to get a guy, open it up. We got a flat tire in the middle of the night. My grandma got food poisoning once. My grandma got locked into a bathroom at a rest stop one time. And she was so panicked when she got out because she said she thought we were going to leave her. I'm like, "Grandma, you thought we get into the car and forget who sits in the front right-hand seat? Like, just drive away." Anyways, every Christmas with my grandma, watching her favorite Christmas movie, Die Hard. Um, you know, but my grandma would also be the person that when I was in university, I wouldn't know how to spell a word. So I'd call her at like midnight and she'd be awake because my grandma stayed up all night doing whatever. She read a lot. She constantly was doing crosswords and she'd know how to spell things. She'd be like, "Okay, you good? Do you need any money?" "No." "Okay, bye." That was it. That was it. There was never, some people with different people in your family, and this happens. There's like a level of pretense, right? I don't know. You feel the need to behave a certain way, to not hurt feelings, to be respectful, to do the right thing. With my grandma, I don't. This is where I think I get it from. I don't think I've ever felt the need to be pretentious anywhere in this world I've ever walked, especially with her, because we never had that. We never had that. My grandma stayed up half the night, didn't get up before 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, lived on coffee, sugar, cigarettes. I mean, you know, we watched Die Hard and action movies and My Fair Lady, and we went shopping together. She's probably the one that gave me my shopping habit, even though she was always trying to tell me to stop spending so much money when I was younger. And when I was older, you know, she lost my grandpa and my mom lived with her. And when I knew that my mom couldn't necessarily take care of my grandma as well, like my grandma's getting older, my mom was working, they moved closer to where I live. And then eventually I built them the basement apartment in my house so that they could both live there and I could help take care of them. And this is all transpiring over quite a few years. I guess moving in here was about maybe 7 years ago, 8 years ago. And getting that balance down was hard, trying to figure out how to handle everything, but it was all right. It was going well. And I liked her close. My grandma and I both like seeing each other every day, but not necessarily, spending quality time. We're just like, I'd come home from school, we'd chat while she was having a cigarette on the front porch, and that'd be that. And I also got very accustomed to my grandma really never being sick. So she's 97 now. And up until, God, 4 months ago, my grandma's really never been really sick. She's had some things. One time she hid that she bumped her head and she cut it and she actually got a staph infection and she wouldn't get out of bed because my grandma wants to sleep through things. And eventually we had to tell her, I had to tell her we're getting an ambulance. We took her to the hospital. And if we didn't take her that day, that would have been it. But my grandma's just so stoic. She's had bad legs and arthritis her whole life. Never really took anything, occasionally a Tylenol, an Advil maybe. She'd have these other pills that she could take, like a Tylenol 3 here and there, and once in a blue moon. But I mean, she dealt with it all the time. Now, as she got older, obviously her memory started going, but her body was going. Even she still only ever took a blood pressure pill. So when she got sick, she got this weird parasite. She's 97 years old, and she ends up in the hospital. And I just assume she'll be fine. She'll get out of the hospital and she'll bounce back like she's always done and she'll be fine. She's my grandma. Every time we go to the doctor, he says that she has superior genetics. Even though she's 97, even in this minute right now, I've had moments during this day, I can't conceive of her not being here. That's not even, it's so irrational. I can't conceive of that finality. I honestly still believe I'm going to walk into that place and she's going to be sitting up ready to go to the casino, which, we went to. Well, my mom and her went to a lot, and then we went to a lot. And even since she's been sick, we've had her up and tried to go there. But the last few months, it's like when you're 97 and you get hit with something just as stupid as a stomach bug like that and a parasite, it just took all of it out of her. All of it. So she was with me forever. And then my mom got cancer and she had to live with my aunt. And then when she was living with my aunt for a couple of years, as my mom was sort of on the mend, and we were talking about bringing her back in the house, and my uncle was going to go with her, and everybody was going to try to sort of do what they can to make all of that time useful and take care of her the way she needed to be taken care of. And it was right around that time that she got sick. And then she couldn't, a single person couldn't take care of her. So we had to put her into assisted living. Now, that was horrible. And I know I talked about that in another podcast. It's not really what I'm focused on today because the people at that facility have been nothing but love and sunshine and have taken care of my grandma so incredibly well. I will be forever thankful for that. But she'd, sleep for a few days and then she'd get up and I think, okay, she's good. Like in a couple days we'll get better. And then she'd go back down and then she got a weird infection and then one thing after another, right? And she went back into the hospital with this weird infection near her ear. And it was called something. I don't even know what it was called. And we got that sorted. And I thought, she'll come back. She'll get stronger. She'll be fine. And that's just not the case. That's just not the case. So I think my delusions have kept me incredibly positive for probably too long. I don't know if that's good or if that's bad. And in the last week, let's say, I move in and out of being realistic in the sense that people say, she doesn't really want to eat. She was eating ice cream for a long time. She doesn't want to eat. And then now she's not drinking. And I know the logical things about that. I know what happens when you don't drink. But I sit with her and, it'll seem like she's articulate and she knows what she wants and she'll say things and I'll feel like, and we definitely have it. She knows who I am and all of that kind of stuff. And I feel like today, this is it. Then we're going to start getting better. And today's the day that I realize that's not going to happen. And I was trying to avoid a lot of meds with her because I thought the meds were the thing. You hear all those horror stories about the elderly in homes and they use too many meds and blah, blah, blah. And And I didn't want to do that because I wanted her to be okay. But at the end of the day, I mean, even though she's a superhero to 97, at 97, some of her body and this point, mostly her kidneys, are just, if you're not going to drink, they're not going to function, right? Now, my grandma's before all of this, and I didn't sit with her to do this. I don't know how my mom did it. My grandma went through all of the different, like, what's a DNR and all of those things. And I have this way of like just blacking it out, like compartmentalizing. Again, I don't know if that's useful or not. Um, because I would go back in and think, yeah, but she's not there. She's not there. And every day I would think I'm just going to get her back to go to the, today, I'm going to tell you the story about today, because today was unfortunately an eye opener because at some point she said, Joe, get me up. I want to have a cigarette. She doesn't really want a cigarette, but she wants to get up. So, but she hadn't been up in a week. And the PSW's beautiful nurses there, and she's like, okay, I go, do we get her up? Like, I don't know. I don't want to hurt her because she hurts everywhere, right? Everything hurts. And I'm not really as cognizant of how bad the kidneys are at this point. And she says, well, we'll get her up. You'll take her out, right? So we get her up and it hurts. It hurts her, but she still wants to go. And as we're leaving, the doctor, who's not there all the time, who came in, basically said, no, you can't. We can't go out and turn her around. Now, I didn't love how this is a palliative care doctor. You have to know, I think I'm a pretty good judge of character, but I think there's a certain kind of nurse and a certain kind of doctor that I respond to. You can be abrupt in the sense you don't need to be soft in a lot of different ways. In front of my grandma, I want you to be soft, but you don't have to necessarily be soft. But I need to hear a level of empathy. Because if I can't hear a level of compassion and empathy and just like, you know, their job might be dealing with this every day and they might deal with that person and that person and that person and then come into our room and they've done it 7 times. I don't care because it's brand new for me. The conversations are brand new. The kinds of medication are brand new. What we're supposed to do is brand new. You can't come in and just like make it like you're just, making a sandwich here. Yeah, and I got there's been not very many, but just a very like I became immediately standoff. Like, can we have a conversation about this? Hers was she have to put her back in the bed, and I'm like, and basically said, you guys don't know what you're doing because you got her out of a bed, but she really shouldn't be out of the bed. And the fact that she's in renal failure probably at this point, it's because toxins are building up and she can't make right decisions. And basically, how dare you get her out of bed? And I don't often keep my mouth shut, but I did because at that point I thought, I go in my head, and a few people made that decision. It wasn't just me, but I'm like, did I hurt her? Am I making it worse for her? But then I thought, once she was already up, doctor, how could I not just take her outside for a minute? So who cares if I got down there and she goes, I want to go back inside, or I don't want to see. Who cares? That could have been the last time, right? But then at that point, I was so freaked out because I'd done the wrong thing. But we're expected, even when they're in facilities like that, to understand the meds, to understand what she needs, when she needs it, what are the signs. Like it's not like being in a hospital, right? And there are people there that have been freaking lovely with her and know her inside and out, but those tend not to be the people that are giving meds. So the doctor's like, we need to start giving regimented medication because, this is the end. And that's how she said it. And I'm thinking to myself, do you think we all knew that? Are we all sitting here on the same freaking page when you are so horribly blunt about the end of a person's life? When she was saying it loudly and so bluntly and it felt callous. Was she being callous? I don't know. It felt callous. And in that job, in my opinion, needed to be better. As a doctor, you need to be better. I don't care how many patients you have a day. I don't care how tired you are. I don't care how frustrated you are. I don't care what kind of a pain in the ass patients' families can be. You better step in that room with a level of empathy, and I'm going to walk you through it. Because if she would have said in a different manner, this might not be a great idea for her. Let's just take her outside real quick, get her some fresh air, and come back in so we can deal with all the other things. How about that? How about that? Now, I'm sure she was busy. You know what? How much I care about that? None. So I brought her back in, and she told us, basically sat us down, and in about 37 seconds told us this, we're talking days, a couple of days. And not too long ago, just so you guys are all aware, people were talking about 3 to 6 months. 3 to 6 months. And now, days. And it felt like, this is just something we were supposed to know, but nobody talks about it. Nobody talks about it. And maybe part of that is my fault because you don't talk about it, because you don't want to talk about it. The minute you do, you think you've admitted it, you've accepted it. It's part of, it's like you've spoken it into existence. I don't know if that's part of it. I don't know if it's part of it of doctors and our medical system to always give you sort of the shiny, bright future. I didn't think 3 to 6 months was the shiny, bright future, by the way. I thought that was a more dark case, especially since, the woman's only taken a blood pressure pill for, 60 years. So today I got to talk to her. She knew who I was. She wanted me to rub her arm, which that's not what my grandma's not a big fan of that. And then the doctor came in and said, no, she needs these meds. And I know that when they give these meds, I'm not going to be able to talk to her anymore. Well, I can talk to her. She's just not going to be able to talk back. And then I felt like, am I being selfish by wanting her not to be on those meds? Because when she's not on those meds, she knows who I am, and we talk, and, we joke, and she smiles when she sees Anna. Like, am I being selfish at that point? Of course I am, right? Of course I'm being selfish at that point. So I understand it's something that needs to happen, and this is how we, as kidney function goes down. I get it. I get them. I really do understand the medicine of it. I just wish this was a different conversation at a different time, progressively taken, rather than what it seemed like today, is something that just hit you over the head, super heavy, super hard. And now you just have to figure out how to be with her in that time, figure out how to keep her comfortable and safe and loved, and how to say goodbye. But that's all hard. Nobody teaches you. Who the hell teaches that? How do we ever talk about that? How do we ever talk about what does goodbye feel like? How do we talk about how you say goodbye? I want to know if she's scared. I want to know if she's uneasy. I want to know if she's relaxed about it, or if she's like, I don't want to go because she doesn't want to necessarily leave us. Like, I just feel like all the times we avoid the discussions, are we really avoiding being comfortable with something that's inevitable? And talking through how somebody feels about it and what somebody wants and all of those things, I think is so, so incredibly important. But you never know. You never know how to bring it up, when to bring it up, how to articulate it, how to not make it come into fruition. And I think you then are met with the medical system, who it's an everyday job. I just don't think that people passing can be an everyday job. I don't think there's room for individuals who don't go in that with that degree of empathy and that degree of understanding and that softness, at least on the front end. I don't understand how they're doing the job. I really don't. and I would just made me angry. Now, let's be honest, guys. It's a much happier place for me. Not happier, but I like the feeling of anger way more than I like the feeling of sad. So if I can be angry at that doctor, that makes me feel, I don't know, better's not the right word, but there's a directionality of that feeling where I can be like, they needed to do this, or they should have done this, or they should have done that. And then it gets redirected against away from the absolute loss of all control when it comes to everything else. So maybe that's it. Maybe you refocus anger, and that's why families have issues obviously during this time, because you refocus all of the anger and all of the this is what we should have done, or this is what we could have done, or the feelings of desperation to fix it in any way, shape, or form you can fix it. And then it ends up in a day like today, you know where you have to say, you're good. You're okay. You can, fall asleep. I'll be here when you wake up, or you can go now. Like all of those things that you think somebody wants to hear. Do they? Does anybody want to hear you can go now? I don't know. We can't really do that poll. Does it make them feel better? What makes them feel better at that time? That's what I would like to know. And again, I'm talking about it before it's happened, right? Because I know when she's not here anymore, there'll be a time I'm not going to want to talk about it at all. But it's right now before all those doors shut where you want to figure out, what do I say in that moment, in these last few days, that make her feel the best? That's what I need to know. So, if anybody has any answers to that, I'd sure love it if you could put it in the comments. Because for somebody that's been, and I've lost people in my life. I've lost my dad, I lost my grandfather, but the closeness I have with my mom and my grandma is different. It's just different. And I don't think I have ever accepted that even at 97 years old, that there would be an end. It's the joys of living in some sort of utopian dream world, I guess, right? But that way I was never sad until now. So maybe that was good. Maybe I could enjoy time with her without being sad for it or for what's to come, because I didn't allow that to be put into my head. So if anybody has any answers or perspective or whatever they can possibly do, let me know in the comments. I would be greatly appreciated. This is going to be the next few days for me, so I will really truly read it and try to take anything I can take from it in order to make sure she feels everything she needs to feel at this point. And for those who have gone through it, if you have words of wisdom, I'm sorry for you having to go through this, but I would love to hear that as well. Whew. Just so you guys know, though, Ruby Kadziorski, badass, awesome woman who was strong, powerful, proud, never pretentious. Never a day in her life was she pretentious. Never a day in her life did she not say what she thought. And I hope I even got a small fraction of that character. And on that note, thank you guys for listening to me. Thank you for sitting with me for this time. I'll see you next week. Same bad time, same bad station. Dismissed.